This is Talking Foreign Policy, a critical look at Canada's role abroad. And today we're going to be discussing a positive sign amidst troubling developments, specifically rising opposition to Mark Carney's radical military turn, with important demonstrations taking place across the country on Saturday. To discuss this issue, we have World Beyond War Canada lead Rachel Small. First of all, thanks a lot for coming on Talking Foreign Policy. And could you just kind of give us a breakdown before we get into the meat of this issue, a breakdown of what is Mark Carney's radical military turn, and what are some of the initiatives in that?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. Even for those of us who saw quite a lot of this coming, it's truly been shocking. It was just, I think, just over a week now where he literally said that Canada will be quadrupling its military spending by the end of the decade, which at last count is less than 5 years away. Um, I was not expecting that kind of language from him. I was not expecting those kinds of numbers, even in the context of a military ramp up. Like it's really staggering and it's really historic, but in the worst kind of ways. I haven't crunched all the numbers over every decade, but I think that this is the type of spending we haven't seen since World War II for Canada. And when I was trying to understand what these dollars even look like when we're saying, oh, this is going to be at least 150 billion per year, I realized that's nearly 10 times Toronto's entire city budget, like Canada's biggest city, to put this in context. Or, for example, if you look at what the federal government spends on all health and social transfers to all the provinces and territories combined, this is vastly more than that. It's just an astronomical sum. And it seems like I mean, it's not really being pitched at all. It's just kind of being announced. And unlike other types of government expenditures, where usually you say, we want to do X, Y, Z, and it's going to cost this much, this is happening kind of the opposite. It's happening an announcement of what they would like to spend, and we're not hearing really what it's for or what it's on, except in vague terms. And we're certainly not hearing the why, other than, again, really vague notions of this is a dangerous world. But presumably it's being justified in some ways as part of the mandate Carney was voted in on to kind of separate Canada from Trump or to, the whole elbows up against the US, when in fact this is 100% about deepening Canada's military integration with the US. And that becomes obvious when you look at what we do know about where this type of money would be going. And it's overwhelmingly US weapons systems, really moving Canada towards a foreign policy that's in lockstep with the US's warmongering and militarism, right? Whether we're talking about buying the F-35 fighter jets, made and controlled by the US, being used by Israel to decimate Gaza, or whether we're looking at Canada now taking steps to join the Golden Dome, which is really just a delusion by Trump, but a really dangerous one that would put missiles in space for the first time on planet Earth. Um, it's about Canada kind of ever more increasingly linking its military with the US. And this is the vision Carney is putting forward right now. And this is apparently why we have to cut funding from literally everything else to pay for this.
Yeah, the elbows up, but we're doing exactly what Donald Trump wants in terms of massively increasing the military spending. Now, that's obviously a very troubling development. I don't think that lots of people still understand the scope of, and as you laid out, just how radical of a turn this is. But I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like in the last couple of weeks, I've started getting messages from more and more organizations, unions, Council of Canadians, NDP electoral associations, NDP MPs, talking about militarism, talking about the Golden Dome, talking about the F-35, talking about the huge increase in military spending. Is this your impression? Is this are we seeing a situation where that now sort of more of the social groups or are understanding that this military spending is a real threat to not just the world in terms of militarism, but also a threat to social programs in this country?
Yeah, I think that just the outrageous scale of this ballooning of Canada's military budget, like how shocking it is, has actually helped some people and groups across the country. I don't want to say like be shocked into their senses, but to sort of realize, wait a second, this is not sort of same old, same old. And of course, Canada already had a bloated military budget, was already kind of steadily increasing it, had already more than doubled it over the 10 years. But this is actually not more of the same. This is like such a totally uh, amplified new direction for Canadian militarism and Canadian foreign policy that I think it's made a lot of people sort of stop in their tracks and pay attention. And it's so blatant that I think people and just the austerity that these types of spendings would require, I think is making people realize like, oh, if we're talking about that type of historic cuts to everything else that we need, that's going to be millions of people suffering. That's going to be tons of people dying to fund this type of a military budget. So it's a promise of crippling austerity, really, of Carney like robbing the country of the resources that we need. And even if you're not someone, I mean, World Beyond War is a military abolitionist organization and really actually believes that state violence is not the way to solve the problems that we have. Even if that's not your politics, I think it's pretty easy to recognize the security threats that face people across Canada every single day, from climate change and forest fires to public health emergencies and just like poverty, right? People who can't afford housing and food. And then promising to spend these billions of dollars in the face of that. And on these just outrageous, overpriced weapon systems that don't even exist. Like the Golden Dome is extra egregious because even US military experts are saying this system doesn't make sense and is not going to work. So I think when people see that, I mean, it's really a slap in the face to everyone else in the country who's struggling to get by, who I can't imagine why Canada would sacrifice everything else for this type of a vision. And I mean, I talked about the austerity, but also, I mean, this is promising, like I said, a war-filled future for Canada. And I mean, Carney at the same time obviously is trying to push through pipelines on Indigenous land without consent. And I mean, both of these types of projects are about entrenching a future. Like you don't build pipelines just in case, right? You build them because you're committing to extract oil and to move it across the country. You're committing to climate crisis. And similarly, when Canada is committing to ramp up its military budget, it's committing to a future where we're using these warships and fighter jets and missiles to interact with the rest of the world for decades to come. And I think people are increasingly wanting to separate out like what are Trump's self-interested goals? What is the weapons industry self-interested goals, the military industrial complex versus like what we actually need for our safety? Like, is China really the enemy? Is Russia really going to bomb Canada? Like, people are starting to question these really racist propaganda ideas that we've all been told over and over again.
Yeah, I've said this. The best case scenario here is it just leads to big cuts in social programs. The worst case scenario, it gives these people who've been supporting the genocide in Gaza even more capacity to intimidate and wage violence internationally. So that's the sort of likely scenario of a huge increase. The other thing I noticed, like,
But on that point, I do want to say, like, I think that also seeing Canada's role in propping up Israel's genocide, Palestine over the past years has been a really eye-opening experience, I think, for tons and tons and tons of people across Canada who maybe before had more of the belief of Canada as a peace builder or whatever. Um, and then just to see just the blatant, direct complicity of Canada in just the most horrific violence many of us have ever seen live streamed on our little phones, I think has really opened people's eyes to what Canada's current foreign policy looks like. So then to see it go down even more of a militarized direction, I think is scary to people who maybe wouldn't have really believed that before.
what one thing on the military spending and putting into perspective. So in this big housing announcement that Carney made a couple of days ago, I think on Sunday, he announced I think 13 billion of housing. 1 billion was set aside to deal with those who are unhoused, about 100,000 people living in abject misery on the streets. the cost, that's about one-eighth the cost of one of the surface combatant vessels they're purchasing, and they're planning on purchasing 15 of them. So that one-eighth is like the whole unhoused crisis. You could have it's about 105 billion they're planning on spending upfront on the surface combatants. So just to get a sense of what could be done in terms of what I think for most people is a much more immediate security threat, obviously for the people in the streets, and broader social kind of issues that come with unhoused situation. Anyways, but so now this
They
week,
definitely get the cake and we get the crumbs. It's pretty clear. Yeah.
and so this weekend, now some of this mobilization you kind of touch on a little bit, but this mobilization, in my opinion, I haven't seen this in multiple years. I can't think of the last time. There is a coming together of social movement organizations. I think it's into the hundreds of different organizations that have endorsed the call. Draw the line, a protest taking place. I think it's in dozens of cities. Can you just sort of tell us a bit? This is not just about militarism. It's about undermining indigenous rights. It's about support for genocide. It's about, the billionaire Carney supporting the billionaire class, selling out to Trump, etc. Can you just tell us a little bit about the coalition and the protests that are taking place on Saturday, September 20th, across the country?
I agree that it's historic. I mean, I'm not going to say first time ever in the history of everything, but at least in the past couple decades, I have not seen this kind of a coming together across movements in Canada. And not just like oh, we're having a climate march and you can have your contingent too, but like an actual co-organized uh, yeah, truly, truly across movements. And we are over 65 different actions planned and confirmed now for Saturday. The ones in the big cities are going to be huge. And then tons of really amazing gatherings being planned really, really all over the country. Um, yeah, and I mean, I think it's really people coming together to say that we refuse to stand by while the government and I mean Canada's richest corporations, obviously, is who Carney is serving here, are determined um, to build a Canada that's even more dedicated to like hoarding wealth, gutting public services, fueling climate collapse, attacking migrants, exploiting indigenous lands. And these are just the policies we've seen Carney push through Parliament in just his first few months in office. Plus, as we mentioned, ramping up an arms race, propping up a genocide. I mean, and it's become clear in just these first few months that this government is going to be using fear, divide and conquer tactics, racism. So I think the antidote to that is solidarity, is really coming together across movements, and learning from each other and growing alliances to actually grow our power. And behind every one of those actions has been months of meetings where, and I mean, I've been really honored to be part of some of them in some of the places. Uh, People are in rooms together who are never in the same rooms together. It's been very, very cool to see. But I think it is just feeling so obvious. I mean, yeah, we're saying that Carney needs to pick a side. That's what draw the line is about. Because to us, the line is really clear. Like it really feels like it's billionaires, war profiteers, corporate power, militarization, and a lot of these politicians on one side, and then the other like is all of us. And even if we don't agree 100% on all of our political analyses, we're all going to get screwed if we don't come together. And I'm thrilled that this is happening as Parliament starts, before the budget drops. We're not actually doing that thing we're often urged to do, which is give him a chance, wait a year. It's like he's not waiting. He has, to borrow a Steve Bannon expression, like flooded the zone already in just his first few months when just sort of law after law after law, an attack to kind of knock us off balance, off our feet, pit us against each other. I'm really happy that we're refusing to do that. And like you said, there are five demands that all the actions had to be organized around. Everyone had to agree to it. So it was really a push for us to recognize how our issues are connecting, and it's everything from uh, ending the era of fossil fuels, like demanding that Canada actually work towards climate justice. We talked about militarism, of course, like not quadrupling Canada's military budget, but also that we refuse to allow migrants and immigrants to be scapegoated for the problems that it's the rich and powerful have created. They need to have immigration status, not deportation. And similarly, we're not going to we're not going to allow Canada to move 20 steps backwards in terms of ending colonialism or undermining Indigenous sovereignty. I mean, we had a long way to go, but there was at least quite a lot of talk about reconciliation, and now it seems like that's out the window, and we're instead in a moment where Carney is trying to um, push through these mega industrial projects on Indigenous land. So we're saying kind of hell no to that, and the final demand is really put people over profit. No to an austerity budget, yes to housing, food, healthcare. And centering workers' needs.
Yeah, it's definitely Carney making Justin Trudeau look good, which is pretty stunning. But thanks a lot for coming on Talking Foreign Policy, and thanks for your organizing with the Draw the Line and more general anti-militarist. And for everyone watching, Saturday, September 20th, Draw the Line protest. You can check out the website
World.
dot world and
Mhm.
check out protests happening in your community. Thank you.
Thank you.